Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music. But as I really like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. I am today, once again, sort of stuck here in Studio One of the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, but I am so excited to be able to talk via Zoom to a really amazing human being who is bringing peace and happiness to the planet every day. Anni Beach, thank you so much for being with us.
I am so happy to be here. Who would have ever thought it, you know?
Yes.
Especially somebody who didn't want to know anything about technology.
I know, you got your computer and Zoom and all this stuff. So you're in, is it Chandler, Arizona right now?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And where is that? Is that near Phoenix, outside Phoenix?
Yes. It's one of the, Phoenix is like the big capital, and then there are the other cities around it. Our city has almost 300,000 people, so it's not little anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's still kind of a farm and high technology area.
Yeah, I love it out there. I mean, I love Phoenix. I love Sedona, Tucson.
Oh.
I'm not sure I want to be there right now with all the COVID stuff going on, but, you know, we'll get back there, right?
That's right. It's not going to last forever.
And I have your book here, Homegrown Bluegrass, A Guide to Making People Happy with Music. And you're so inspirational, and we can talk a lot about Jam Pak, but I'm always curious, how did music sort of come into your life? Were you little? Were your parents musical? Did they play? When did you start? Kind of what was your trajectory as you grew up with music?
Okay, that's pretty easy. I was from a musical family. My mother was a harpist. From the time she was 12 years old, she insisted she had to play that instrument.
Wow.
She was born 1907. And so she played the harp, concert harp. And then my father came along and married her when she was only about 19 years old. And they went on to become, he went on to own Vancouver Funeral Chapel. And music, you know, has to be played all the time. So my mother was the organist and harpist for the funeral chapel for 40 years, and they were very successful. And then they played all over the place. But my dad, who always wanted to play the cello, ended up playing the musical saw.
Wow.
So together, you know, they did all that. And then my oldest sister, who is now 91, still gigging in Hawaii, where she's lived for 50 years. Harpist and, the big pipe organ. She was the really one who did so much music. That's all she wanted to do was practice. And that's what she did. Then two more sisters, they played music and they were in the junior symphony and things like that. I come along a long time later and I don't want to do any of it. I just want to play outside. I always loved animals and I was always having things to do like that. But I started piano when I was 8 years old and I didn't like to practice and, you know, I did it. They never forced me. They just encouraged me. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I loved listening. But, you know, my very basis of everything, and I can't even describe exactly why, were the Negro spirituals. Mm. That was my foundation of what I learned and heard. Mahalia Jackson, Marian Anderson, even Harry Belafonte, all those when I was young. And folk music, because I'm 76 now. So by the 60s, it was into folk, but I was out there trying to scramble and make a living, I guess. So that was kind of my basis. In other words, I have a piano background. I could read some music, never well. And I never really invested in it. But come 50 years old, the mandolin I'd had one for 25 years. My parents had brought me from Italy, actually when I was pregnant. So by the time the mandolin got to me, I was too busy to do anything for 25 more years. And so that's kind of, I just fell in love with that little instrument. I met some people. I was over in Southeast Asia on my own little Peace Corps adventure when I was 19. And there was a Peace Corps guy coming back on the ship I was on, freighter, and he had a mandolin, and I hadn't really looked at that much. And then I was privileged to go to a University of Tokyo had a mandolin orchestra. There are about 30 of them playing classical stuff. And I just fell in love with it. I thought, that's little, one line of notes, maybe I can handle that. And so my husband, who was a musician, a real one, jazz musician, and made his way in the U.S. Air Force, he said, well, he would help me if I would do it, and he was going to learn to play the cello, which was far from a saxophone. Anyway, that's how I got started. So how many years ago? Is that about 26 years ago?
Yeah, but you really were brought up with music all around you, and
Yes.
when you're talking about listening to the spirituals and folk music, that was just because it was all around the house? Did you play music at that time? Were you in any bands or anything? Or
No, I never was in band. I was always in choir. From 6th grade, I always sang. Not great, but, I sang. And the reason, very quickly, for the type of music I listened to, my mother was a church youth person who, ran youth groups. And she was called in to take over a youth group, which was mostly young Black teenagers and a little bit older. And so I would tag along with her always. And the music I heard of these young people singing was just out of this world. John, the other night when he played for the going home thing from our chat, that was Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child.
Ah, yes.
I recognized it immediately.
Yeah, I certainly, kind of grew up as a soul man. Soul music was big.
Oh,
I didn't play music back then, but I did maybe 15 years ago. Man, I got hooked on those Alan Lomax recordings, the field recordings, the field hollers, and the work songs and all that stuff. There's
right.
such passion and power
Yes.
that comes out of that music. We've been really, our diversity has been such a strength in this country, particularly with music, and so then, fast forward, how did Jam Pak? Could you talk about Jam Pak a little bit? It's so interesting and exciting, and I'm happy for more people to be able to hear you talk about it. So how did that get started?
Well, like I said, I took up the mandolin about 1991. It was just 50. And I was a substitute teacher by then. I had been on the Navajo reservation up in Arizona and Utah, New Mexico for 17 years.
Wow.
And so I had done things up there, but I came down here and, had to do things. And I became a substitute teacher instead of going back full time. And so I was in all Chandler schools. There were only about 14 then. High school, preschool, I didn't care. Chemistry. I took my mandolin everywhere and I would practice and I would sing with the children because I used to have huge fright. That was part of the problem with piano. My hands couldn't even find the keys, if I had to play in front of anybody.
Right.
I don't know. I'm working on that now. But I took my mandolin everywhere and would sing with children, and everybody loved that. And one day in '94, a couple little boys, second graders, CJ and Lionel, came to the house after school, knocked on the door, and said, "Can you play us some more music?"
Oh.
And that was it. I like to speak of some of those things as crossroads.
Mm.
You know, I would have never in a million years known what was going to come next. And I talked to Vincent Beach, my husband, and he said, "Sure, why not? Go for it. Do something for the neighborhood." So the very next week, four little neighbors from one family crossed the alley, and those other two little boys, we were in the front yard with our harmonicas. I had been also teaching harmonicas when I would substitute.
Nice.
I would take my little spray bottle, and children loved that. So I did that. And that was the very beginning. And we had so much fun. We sang Tom Dooley, "This Land Is Your Land," puffed on the harmonicas, and I played the mandolin. So I never let it down after that. I saw the thrill. The youngest one, he wasn't even in kindergarten, about 3.5 or 4 years old. And I just never put it down because the joy, it's, you just, when you see that and when it's up close and personal, I didn't even have them in my house until it got too hot because back in those days, people are always thinking stuff and I didn't want any problems.
Right.
And so I waited until people really knew who I was because they didn't. I'd been working other places, they didn't know us. And so very shortly, parents were coming and all happy, and we built those instruments, the canjos.
Banjos. Yeah, I saw the picture of those. Those are
Did you
pretty
see
cool.
I have them. I just didn't bring one to show you. I know this isn't
Yeah, I've
this
seen
is
them.
the picture, but anyway, so I got a hold of that from a kit and built it, and then I had somebody, copy it. But I felt guilty because there were some hard parts about the kit. Just taking the lid out of a pop can
Mm.
is tricky.
Yeah, you can cut
So
yourself.
I got in touch with the man who had invented it. He was down in North Carolina, I believe. And he said, if you will go play at nursing homes for people, I will send you 12 free kits.
Wow.
So that was the beginning. So the kits, we had to put the frets in, we had to do the whole works. Anyway, that was the beginning. 4 years we played canjos
And
and sang.
harmonicas.
Yep, and harmonicas. But we developed a very big repertoire of bluegrass. Maybe I didn't mention that. When I finally had to get a teacher for mandolin, I couldn't teach myself. I tried. I got a teacher and she was bluegrass, and that was like old timey, and I liked that and everything. And I really liked the one line of notes, you
Hmm.
know, no, not having to do all that like with the piano. So that that I had my instrument, the canjos, and after about 4 years, the Arizona Bluegrass Association decided, well, maybe they are serious. There were bunches of us, like 25 of us, still playing canjos and performing, and we looked very different. Most of the people were kind of brown in the band, and mostly bluegrass is practically all white at that time.
Yep.
Now you get a little smattering, but that's what our role is.
So it sounds like you just the joy that comes from music and your desire to have that, to create that, live that, or whatever, just led to all of a sudden you had a whole bunch of kids who'd come over, and they come over a couple times a week, and you played music and you started doing performances, and And how did the name Jam Pak come up? How did it kind of get formalized?
You know what? I did that my very first, before I even had the first meeting. I was trying to think of something like gang because we have gangs around. No, that doesn't sound good. Uh, a pack, and jamming.
Mm,
Jamming is huge part of bluegrass and jazz. Probably, those are really the where you have real jams. And so I came up with that, and I wanted that short spelling. Later on, I found out they just named a beer that in 1994 too.
really?
Yep.
Jam?
And someone sent me, not even a few years back, and I ran around trying to find a case of it, and I never could find it. I have a picture of it, and it featured instruments on there. But to me, it was an original name. And it's used more now, but I hope I secured it anyway for our website and that. But that's what I got the name. So at first it was just Jam Pak. And then after we began to get instruments and the children were learning to really play them and all, I thought we better call us a band, because we really are a band, even though we don't look like a traditional bluegrass band. We are, but I toyed around with that name. I didn't want to say bluegrass because in Arizona there's a lot of bluegrass police, and if it's not pure, they might not like it. They've changed over the years, but this was back in the 90s.
Right.
And so I thought about the Jam Pak Blues and Grass. So I broke up the name. And then I definitely wanted the neighborhood in there because that's what it was. They were all just neighbors. I live in an immigrant, mostly Hispanic neighborhood. Most of it, 96%. And so that's the name. I came up with that, but that was about 4 years later. Then one of our mothers made us handmade T-shirts, and we were on our way.
And so now you're a 501c3 charitable organization, and you have a website, and this year is a little different, but you've been going around with 20 some kids in your bus and doing performances and festivals and all that.
Yes, for a long time. Our first festival was in 1998, and we still were on banjos, wash tub bass, and we had a banjo teacher who was teaching our little guys, and he came, and he was the only one who could take a break. I couldn't even really take a break back then. I would have been scared to do that too. So that was our first festival, and then from then on, we began to be invited, to festivals because we were very unique and we were real. We did the real thing. It's always wanted to say very authentic, never perfect. We never aimed for perfect. We aimed to give joy. And that's what we've done, for all these years.
So yeah, that's how do you describe that? I mean, you talk about the joy of music and giving joy through music. I mean, how does that happen? What is this thing we call music? And it almost seems like it created a whole community for you. It brought people together.
Yes, it did. You know what? Before we couldn't meet together, one day I did. I asked the question, and maybe this was after reading Victor's book. They're all in the living room, and I'm saying, why do you think our music makes us happy and the people who hear us happy? Because after you read the book, you'll see a lot of them talk about that and making people happy and making ourselves happy, which is our goal. And they came up with things like, because when they watch us, they just love us. And we can even see them cry. And then and that's what I always tell them, if you've made people cry, you've done the job. Because they look at these little pumpkins up there, all different shades and sizes, and playing their hearts out, singing. And it's just incredible, really, to me. I don't even know how it happens, and that's the truth. There's some spirit that just brings that joy, because we all do love each other, that's for sure. And most of the time get along very well. And all the ages help each other. It's like a family, but really even better.
Yeah, I mean, and the book goes into a lot of sort of the tips about how somebody really might think about developing similar kind of a community band or whatever it is they might want to do. What are some of the secrets of success, or at least the things that you've stumbled upon that you know makes it continue to sort of work well, and you have more younger people coming in all the time,
Right,
and
all the
and
time.
all that. I mean, how does that happen?
Ah, I think one of the very basic things is they are here together. They have a common purpose. I stress that. Even though you're 5 or 6 years old, you have a purpose. You are making yourself happy, learning songs, learning to play. You're making other people happy. You lift them up. What a great thing. When you instill that kind of philosophy or purpose, first of all, that brings people together. Next, I feed them. Hospitality, hospitality is a must. And so we always have food. I either cook, big pot of something ahead of time, or fix it all up so they can make like toasted cheese sandwiches on a big grill, and they'll make them for each other. Um, we always celebrate birthdays. We have parties, definitely. We have. So every individual, that's the other thing. There's no star, even though we certainly have them. Awesome musicians, but they're no stars. Everybody is on an equal footing. The coaches, that's like the adults, myself. I'm still boss, but we're on an equal footing. We help each other. We learn from each other. Those are very powerful things that keep people together. That sense of, hey, I belong here. Look how that's what they even say. I take care of them.
So
You know,
common purpose, equality. I do have a friend, Frank Fatuski, fabulous musician, who says, "Food and music, man, that's what it takes. Food and music."
yeah,
But also in your book, and I've heard you talk about, sort of the role of rules or no rules, and having this, group of youngsters, all ages, just sort of stay with the program. How does that happen too? What's behind that?
I think first of all, I was a teacher, a regular classroom teacher
Right.
for 1 year. Classroom management was not my high point. I just wanted to have fun and do things. It's snowing outside today, so let's just all paint. I did that kind of. So I got kind of poor marks in classroom management. And so when it came to something like this, trying to take attendance with everybody, trying to, make any rules and all that, it just didn't fly with me, or marbles in the jar, any of that stuff. I think if you want to be here and learn music and be part of a community, this is for you. If I have to monitor how you act, I'm not here to be a policeman, and I'm not going to do it. And that was always my stance. Now, that didn't always work, but it was almost very seldom that I had to excuse anybody
Yeah.
that just wouldn't fall in, and they monitor each other. After so many years, the older ones have been here 10 and 12 years. Everybody knows what to expect. I mean, they have to respect each other. be kind, mannerly, all the time. I just naturally, you teach those things just like you would. I don't even have to think about it.
Hmm.
I just do it. And and talk about what does it take to be a band. And I give them examples of people they know whose band didn't stay together because they didn't get along with each other,
Hmm.
or they wanted more money, or, their behavior didn't cut it. And so we talk about things like that. Why do you think our band has lasted 26 years? And right on through my 25-year plan and beyond.
Yeah, I know that's something we should mention. You the first time I met you online, you said, "Well, I just developed my 25-year strategic plan. I guess it's you call it, right? And you're 76, so I think
Yeah.
that's a great. What's in your plan?
Yeah. My plan, first of all, I have it that I made that after reading Victor Wooten's book, The
Mm.
Music Lesson, about the quest, about, how am I gonna shape this? I've already put things, into action, but I needed something for myself because people, ever since I reached 70, they got scared, like I might die. And I'm very healthy. I come from a long lived family, but still, children see all their grandparents dying and everything. And so they were afraid. And so I put some things in place, like the whole house. This is just my house. And the vehicles, everything has been put into, uh, I guess you would call it a trust or a will,
Hmm.
that when I do go, all of this will remain in Jam Pak.
Oh, nice.
And I have a trio that are in charge of that,
Hmm.
a son, a daughter, and a Jam Pak man,
Hmm.
fellow boy. He's a boy to me still, but he's grown up now. Okay, so I put that in place. Then the next thing in my plan that I really have to do, and I have the time to do it now, is to listen,
Hmm.
to study, to try to get new, fresh ideas, or do the things that I've wanted to do. And and I'm going to continue that no matter what. I realize now, yes, I can go outside and practice my mandolin first thing in the morning. Was that Daniel Levitin was talking
Oh,
about
yes,
that?
he was. Yes.
I bought that great big book, Successful Aging, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get
Yeah.
that as
So
well.
yeah. So I'm it's a big book, but I'm working my way through it. Anyway, so I realized, hey, practicing, I love to practice, and it was the last thing I would do.
Mm.
So part of a big, like number one, actually on my little numerical thing, was to be happy with my mandolin playing.
Yes, that's
Over the next
important.
25 years, I want to be happy with it. And so I already put that in. I've been however many days, 100 days out there every morning. I have a little St. Francis sculpture that I made in 92. Well, it's actually big. It's on a pole from Desert Storm
Hmm.
and for peace. And so I have just recently fixed that all up into a little center. And the dogs and cats would go out there. I tell them it's time to make music. Oh, they want to get right out there. So I go practice outside. So that's a new thing, and that's on my plan to do that. And then the next big thing, of course, is to continue this community, whatever I need to do.
Yeah, that's so important, and you're just such an inspiration in so many ways. And I think one of the reasons that you wrote the book, having been doing this for a while, was to help other people be able to figure out how to do that. So, as we talked in some of the Vix Camp chats recently, boy, it'd be great if there were a lot more of these, groups, youth music camps like Brian Weber is doing, and uh, Liz's camp for girls
Girls
and
Rock.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Girls
Girls
Rock.
Rock. What would you say to people who might be thinking about, boy, I sure would like to be involved with, create, develop, work with people to start some sort of a musical community? Do you have any thoughts for somebody like that?
Yes, and that's why the book was written, because so many people come and want to join this, and I can only handle so many. And some of them are even musicians that want to bring their children. And I'm saying, you can do this. It's not hard. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did what I knew how to do at the time, and it grew. But I would I so strongly encourage people. You don't have to be that nonprofit came just 3 years ago.
Hmm.
We ran it all on our own all that time. People would help if they wanted to. And like I always said, if we can't do it, we won't do it. That's all. We'll be
Hmm.
right here, you know. But I would encourage people, you don't have to look at something real big. 3 or 4 people, and you say, I want to learn with you. I want to do this thing. I love whatever music. Bluegrass happens to lend itself very well to do what I do
Hmm.
because of the instruments, the strings. And and you can even do nothing but banjos, you can do whatever you have. But you just get started, and I don't know how to get. I don't know. I've talked about it, I've written about it. I've been at International Bluegrass Musicians Association. They think it's all great. And maybe people out there are doing it and we just don't hear about it. That's what I pray. But um, the the absolute life changing stuff that happens of children who would have never thought about playing music like this,
Hmm.
and now they're performers. They love entertaining. They love getting together and jamming. It's a whole lifetime thing. Basketball might wear out,
Yeah.
soccer, all those active things. But if you have your music and you can make people happy and you can be happy at whatever level you are, what a joy. And then when it's in your house, there's so much less to worry about
Yeah.
than if you had to go up to some school and take all your stuff. And here at home we can cook. They can all get in the refrigerator. They can all do those things. Now, when Mr. Beach was still alive, he didn't care for that part, or
That's funny.
somebody to look in the pot what he was cooking. But he got seriously, well, I hate to say ill, but he got a rare form of Parkinson's
Mm.
from about 2003 on. And then it just had to go the way it did. People had to be able to eat and help and do everything. And so he didn't care anymore. And they took care of him too.
Mm. Yeah.
But that is the big thing of just saying, hey, I want to do something for people. I want to teach somebody what I know, or I want them to teach me what they know. So simple.
Just sort of have that thought, that
Yes,
desire,
yes.
develop it as an intention, and just do it.
The intention is very, very important, because once you start, you should not put it down.
Hmm.
There's always little challenges. Oh my God, they spill stuff on my house, and everything. There's, there's little challenges, but I'm telling you, the thing when they're sitting there playing and working away at their music, and telling their friend, "Hey, let's go practice together." 6 and 7 years old, or
Ooh.
here, I'll show you this new chord I learned. Nothing like it.
Yeah. So when you keep your eyes on the prize, in a sense, on that quest, on that mission,
Exactly.
the little things don't matter so much. So, one of the things that we have a really a mutual interest in is just developing these communities, broader, bigger, more expansive, whatever, to really help make the world a better place. I mean, it seems to me we could use a million jam packs like this new
Yeah.
thing I've found in India that have happened, the music ashrams, you
Yes.
know, getting people together, communal groups, musicians to help learn, create together, etc. Do you have maybe some last thoughts about, what we can do as a community of musicians, what musicians can do? Obviously, somebody could start up something like Jam Pack, but any other thoughts just overall for us?
Jefferson, one of the biggest things I think is right now we have a platform we've never had because of Zoom or whatever. That's the only one I'm familiar with. Okay. We have a platform to really talk to people, not just them see us at a festival. We can talk, this is something you can do for your whole life. Everything in Daniel Levitin's Successful Aging book points to that. You keep learning, you keep doing, your brain keeps functioning, you have purpose all the way through. You're not just waiting on the reaper to come by.
Yeah.
And I think that at this time, what you're doing, I didn't know you. I didn't know about all this going on. And I love it. And the ashram, and what Biko said on his
Yeah,
podcast,
Pico Cassini, yeah.
yeah, that's just great. And I think the more we promote that, talk about it, take advantage of invitations to present, um, we're going to get somewhere. It's a long, long, long lifetime process. But the ashram thing, the kids always laugh. I have a lot of older musicians now. They have their own bands and stuff. And I've talked who's going to be able to afford these big houses? Really? They're hundreds of thousands of dollars now. What if you all love each other? What if you together maybe buy a great big house? Or my other real thing is to get the tiny house movement and make a little village,
Right.
Where,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, what do you call them? I don't know. What do you call that? When,
Just intentional
just,
communities or
yeah,
something?
but different kinds like that, where you can all be together, maybe have your own space, of course. And because for a prolonged time, people still like their own space.
Yeah.
But that, you help with each other's children, you take care of people who get sick. You might have communal dining. You make music together. You go out and entertain. You hold classes. I think that is, and I've been talking about it a long time. If they listen to this, they'll know, oh, there goes Mrs. Beach.
No, it sounds so perfect. I mean, I am right
Yeah,
with you on that, Annie.
yeah. That I think in our economics to come, this may be a very viable, dang it, I can't think of the word. It's like I don't want to say paradigm, that's not exactly it, but a model, a
A
model.
model. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
can be a model for bringing people together with a common interest.
and maybe one of the things as we talked at a couple of Vic's virtual camps, we don't want to go back to the same old normal,
No,
and I think, what it really takes is, a sort of a paradigm shift, the way people think about things, the way people want their lives to be in the future. Is that
Yeah.
little video, The Great Realization. Remember that pandemic that we had and everything changed? Let's hope
Remember
we can
that?
do that. We're working on it, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are, because I believe that our lives are going to change, and they're going to change for the better. We're going to realize, there's a whole world out there that got sick just like us. Everyone all over the world. We all had to do the same thing, to try to curb it. And we had to learn new things if we weren't going to just sit there and vegetate. And I think I can't ever stress it enough. We all need a purpose. We didn't just land here to soak it all up. I so strongly urge people, you need to do things. You need to help other people in whatever way. We help through our music.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
Well, Annie, you're such an inspiration. As I said, it's great. I feel like I've known you for about 50 years, even though it's been a couple of weeks.
Are you that old?
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and sharing your wisdom and your insight and your joy and all that. It's so wonderful. So thank you very much, Anni Beach, Jam Pak. People can find Jam Pak online. Just Google Jam Pak, Jampak. I'm sure you'll find it someplace, and stop in and say hello to Annie.
Good. I would love that. Thank you, Jefferson, and thank you so much for what you're doing. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. Thank you. All right, Anni Beach,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.